This is Shadows and Gods, where power is never innocent, gods are never clean, and every hero begins with a crime. Today, we uncover the divine deception that created Greece's greatest hero. Identity theft is a crime we tend to think of as modern. But what if the biggest case of identity theft in history wasn't about money, but about passion? What if the victim was a legendary queen, and the thief wasn't some mortal scammer, but the king of the gods himself? This is the story of how a single night of divine deception created the greatest and most complicated hero in all of Greek mythology. In the ancient Greek city of Thebes lived a woman named Alcmene. She was royalty, the granddaughter of the hero Perseus, the guy who defeated Medusa. The old poets describe her as impossibly perfect, tall, wise, and with a beauty that could rival Aphrodite, the goddess of love. But more than her looks, Alcmene was famous for her deep sense of honor and her absolute devotion to her husband. Her husband was the great warrior Amphitryon. Theirs was a love story, but it was complicated from the start. A shadow fell over their house before they could even truly be together. In a messy dispute over cattle, Amphitryon had accidentally killed Alcmene's father, Electryon. To make things right and be purified of the death, Amphitryon was sent on a quest. He had to wage war to avenge Alcmene's brothers, who had been killed years earlier by Taphian pirates. Grief-stricken, Alcmene made a vow. She would not sleep with Amphitryon, not truly be his wife, until he returned victorious. Bound by love and honor, Amphitryon accepted. He gathered his army and set off for war, leaving his virtuous bride-to-be waiting for him. And so, Alcmene waited, a perfect picture of fidelity, her life on hold until justice was done. This combination, staggering beauty, fierce loyalty, and untouchable virtue, did not go unnoticed. From high on Mount Olympus, Zeus, the king of the gods, and a being with a well-known weakness for beautiful mortal women, looked down and was completely enchanted. And with Zeus, enchantment always led to desire. But he also saw something more. He saw the mother of a new kind of hero. The ancient writer Diodorus Siculus tells us that Zeus's goal wasn't just lust, it was procreation. He decided he would father a son with Alcmene, a child who would defend both gods and men. There was just one problem. Alcmene was unshakably faithful. She would never willingly betray her husband. So, the king of the gods, master of thunder and lightning, decided to become a master of deceit. He wouldn't try to break down the fortress of Alcmene's devotion. He'd just walk through the front door, holding the key. To sleep with Alcmene, Zeus would have to disguise and become Amphitryon. He'd have to pull off the perfect identity theft. Zeus's plan was a masterpiece of divine cunning. This wasn't a simple trick. He waited for the perfect moment. As Amphitryon's war was ending, just one day before the real husband was scheduled to return, Zeus made his move. He descended from Olympus and transformed himself into Amphitryon in every single detail. His height, his voice, his mannerisms, even the weary but triumphant look of a general back from a long war. And to make the deception absolute, he didn't just look the part. He came with stories. He recounted heroic tales of his victories against the Taphians, details so specific only the man who lived them could know. When Alcmene saw her beloved husband walking toward her, victorious just as he promised, she had no reason to doubt him. Her heart filled with joy and relief. Her vow was fulfilled. Her brothers were avenged. She welcomed the man she believed to be Amphitryon into her home, and finally into her bed. But a normal night wouldn't be enough for what Zeus had in mind. He wasn't just there for a secret hookup. He was there to forge a hero, and creating a hero of world-altering strength required a conception to match. So Zeus performed another miracle. He commanded Helios, the god of the sun, to keep his chariot parked. He ordered the dawn to wait. Zeus stretched that single night to the length of 3 for what felt like 3 nights, but was only 1. Alcmene was with the god disguised as her husband. It was a night of reunion and divine purpose, all wrapped in a mortal lie. In the darkness of that supernaturally long night, Zeus impregnated Alcmene. He had bypassed her unbreakable virtue, violating her chastity in the most profound way imaginable. The seed of a demigod, the future hero Heracles, was planted. As the long night finally ended, Zeus slipped away, his cosmic crime complete. Alcmene was left with the happy memory of her husband's return, completely unaware she'd been the victim of a divine conspiracy. The very next day, the Vitsumreal Thaumatrian arrived home, weary from war and eager for a passionate reunion. Instead, he was met with a loving but strangely calm welcome from Alcmene. She was happy to see him, sure, but there was no sense of urgent relief. When he told her about his victory, she listened patiently, as if she'd heard it all before. And when he tried to embrace her, she seemed confused by just how eager he was. "But you came home last night," she told him, completely baffled. She recounted everything: his arrival, his war stories, their long night together. She thought he was playing some kind of weird prank. Amphitryon was bewildered. He had just arrived. The reunion he'd dreamed of for months had apparently already happened with someone else. His confusion quickly turned to anguish. In his desperation, he sought out the one man in Thebes who could see beyond mortal games, the blind prophet Tiresias, whose sightless eyes saw the meddling of the gods. Listened to the frantic story. The prophet's revelation was more terrifying than Amphitryon could have imagined. The man who had come to Alcmene wasn't a mortal rival, it was Zeus himself. Amphitryon was stunned. His wife hadn't been unfaithful, she'd been deceived by the most powerful being in the universe. His anger was instantly replaced by fear and awe. He knew he couldn't challenge a god. That night, the real Amphitryon also slept with his wife, and Alcmene unknowingly conceived a second time. She was now carrying twins, one fathered by a god and the other by a mortal. From that moment on, out of terror and reverence, Amphitryon never again touched the woman chosen by Zeus. Meanwhile, on Mount Olympus, the secret didn't stay secret for long. Hera, Zeus's wife and the queen of the gods, discovered her husband's latest affair. For Hera, this was the ultimate insult. Zeus hadn't just had another fling. He'd meticulously planned this, using deception to create a son he clearly intended for greatness. Her husband's betrayal ignited a legendary rage, a hatred aimed not at Zeus, but at the innocent child growing in Alcmene's womb. Hera's vengeance would become the defining trial of this hero's life, a storm that would follow him from his cradle to his grave. As Alcmene's pregnancy neared its end, Zeus got cocky. He gathered the gods on Olympus and swore a mighty oath. "Hear me, on this day, a child of my blood, a descendant of the house of Perseus, will be born, and he will be a ruler over all those around him." He was of course talking about his unborn son, but Hera heard this, and she saw her opening. She approached Zeus, pretending to be supportive. "A mighty oath, my king," she said. "Swear it to me now, an unbreakable vow that what you say will happen." Blinded by his own pride, Zeus swore the oath. Hera had him trapped. She immediately flew down from Olympus, not to Alcmene, but to the palace of Amphitryon's uncle, Sthenelus, another descendant of Perseus. Sthenelus' wife was also pregnant, but her son Eurystheus was a full 2 months premature. Hera didn't care. She used her divine power to force an early labor, and a frail 7-month Eurystheus was born that very day. At the exact same time, Hera sent her daughter, Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, to Thebes. But Eileithyia wasn't there to help. She sat outside Alcmene's room, crossed her legs, and clasped her hands, tying her clothes into tight knots, a powerful sympathetic magic. As long as she sat that way, Alcmene's womb was magically sealed. The birth was stopped. For 7 days and nights, Alcmene was trapped in agonizing, unending labor. The child of Zeus, destined to be a king, was being blocked from his own birth, while his weaker cousin, Eurystheus, had just stolen his birthright. Thanks to Zeus's foolish oath, Eurystheus was now the one fated to be a great ruler. The hero would be born his subject. Alcmene would have died if not for her quick-thinking servant, Galanthus. Realizing the strange, cross-legged woman at the door was divine interference, Galanthus ran out and shouted a joyful lie. The baby is born.
Alcmene has a son. Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, was so startled, she leaped to her feet, uncrossing her legs and unclenching her hands. The spell was broken. In that instant, Alcmene was finally released. First, she gave birth to a strong, healthy boy, the son of Zeus. They would name him Alcois, though the world would come to know him as Heracles. A moment later, she delivered a second, smaller boy, Ithacles, the mortal son of Amphitryon. The twins had arrived, but their destinies were already worlds apart. Hera, however, was far from done. Her first plan had robbed the hero of his kingdom. Her next plan was meant to rob him of his life. One night, when the twins were just 8 months old, Hera sent 2 massive, venomous snakes slithering into their nursery. Ithacles, the mortal baby, woke up and screamed in terror. But Alcides, the demigod, was not afraid. As the serpents rose up to strike, the 8-month-old baby just looked at them with calm focus. He reached out with his chubby infant hands, and with a strength that defied nature, he grabbed each snake by the neck. When Alcmene and Amphitryon burst in, they saw an unbelievable sight. Ithacles was wailing in a corner of the cradle. In the center sat Alcides, gurgling happily. In each of his tiny fists, he held a dead serpent he had just strangled with his bare hands. He played with their limp bodies like they were rattles. In that moment, any doubt Amphitryon had was gone. He knew with absolute certainty which child was his and which was the son of a god. This was Heracles' very first monster slaying, a show of heroic power before he could even walk. The identity theft that began with a god's desire had now produced a child who strangled giant snakes in his crib. It was clear to everyone, this was no ordinary boy. The incident with the snakes was a turning point. It was a terrifying confirmation of Hera's hatred and a spectacular display of the young hero's power. Amphitryon called on Tereus as once more, who prophesied the boy's incredible destiny and the countless monsters he would defeat. Amphitryon raised Heracles as his own, giving him the best tutors in Greece, shaping his raw power with mortal skill. But he and Alcmene always lived with the knowledge that their son's existence was an offense to a vengeful goddess. In a desperate and ultimately useless attempt to appease Hera, the boy's parents changed his name from Alcides to Heracles, which means the glory of Hera. It didn't work. The name became a bitter irony, as Hera's glory came in the form of a lifetime of suffering for the hero. His entire life was defined by the consequences of that first great deception. The child born from that lie was blessed with godlike strength, but cursed with the unrelenting hatred of the queen of the gods. It was Hera who ensured his cousin Eurystheus would be king, making Heracles a subordinate. And it would be King Eurystheus, goaded by Hera, who would later assign Heracles his famous 12 labors, a series of impossible tasks designed to kill him. Hera's wrath would even drive Heracles to madness, causing him to kill his own wife and children in a fit of delusion, a tragedy that would haunt him forever. And what about Alcmene, the virtuous queen at the heart of it all? Her life was changed forever. She, the model of fidelity,
became the unknowing mother of a demigod. She raised two sons, one destined for a quiet mortal life, the other for violent immortality. She lived long enough to see Heracles become the world's greatest hero, but also to see the immense pain his greatness caused. In a grim final chapter, long after Heracles' death, his enemy, King Eurystheus, was finally killed and his head was brought to the elderly Alcmene. In a brutal act of vengeance for a lifetime of torment inflicted on her son, she took her weaving pins and gouged out the dead king's eyes. The woman whose quiet virtue attracted a god ended her story with an act of shocking violence, a testament to the turbulent world she'd been thrown into. The story of Alcmene is a powerful reminder that the actions of the gods have deeply human consequences. It all began with a single calculated lie. That one night of stolen identity didn't just create a hero, it created a destiny of tragedy, monsters and impossible labors, setting in motion a chain of events that would echo through mythology forever. Zeus's divine identity theft is one of the most famous godly crimes in mythology, but it's far from the only one. The Greek gods were constantly breaking their own rules and meddling in mortal lives with disastrous results. What other divine crimes do you want us to investigate? Let us know in the comments below.